He was tall like Tom Selleck. He had the thick mustache like Tom Selleck. And one day, me and Tom, were standing in the lineup at London Drugs, and I got a really good look at him. And I still thought it might be him. And then I heard him speak, and it wasn't him. We often do this with people, don't we? I kind of think I know Stephen Harper. I have friends who work for him. I have friends who are friends with his wife. I read what other people have said and written about him. And I make assumptions about him, about what I think he is like, mostly based on my political leanings. And your opinion of him may be completely different than mine, especially if our political preferences differ. But in either case, it may or may not be who he really is, because the reality is neither of us know him personally. On the other hand, I know my husband, Neil. I know what is important to him. I know what he likes and doesn't like. I know his character. I know his strengths, which are many, and I know his weaknesses, which are few. I know him because I want to know him. I spend time with him. I observe him. I ask him questions. There is a natural tendency within us to try and make God who we think he is, or who we think he ought to be. If all is well in our world, our view of God is unchallenged. He is good. He is loving. He is fair. But when things start to go awry, that is when our true view of God is revealed. We think God is not good, or that he is unjust, or that he is not in control because hurricanes destroy whole cities. Children are mistreated and abused. Wars break out and innocent people are killed. Or women get cancer and die, leaving their children without a mother and their husbands heartbroken. We try to fit God into who we want him to be, rather than seeking him for who he really is. As someone said to me recently, Rachel, I don't believe in your God. I don't believe in a God who would let this happen. Problem is, there is only one God, and we can't make him who we want him to be. He is who he is. In his book, Made in His Image, Steve Lawson agrees, saying, our most rudimentary problem is that we do not fully comprehend who he is. Our thoughts about him have become very unclear, fuzzy, and oblique. The result of this distorted view of deity is that it leaves everything else out of focus as well. Whenever we lose a right view of God, everything else gets out of perspective. Essentially, our view of God will inform our view of everything else. It will be the lens through which we perceive reality, and it will shape our thoughts, worldview, attitudes, and perceptions. When our view of God is erroneous, our view of other things will be erroneous by default. One of the most pivotal moments in my spiritual life was when a good friend of mine saw me struggling under my view that God was a stern judge, and that I had to earn his approval or avoid his disapproval. He said to me, Rachel, there is nothing you can do to make God love you more, and there is nothing you can do to make God love you less. Seeing God as he is, faithful, steadfast, constant, unchanging in his love for me regardless of my behavior, enabled me to rest. God hadn't changed, but my understanding of who he was had changed, and as a result, I was changed. God has revealed himself to us so that we can know him, and he has done this in two ways. He has revealed himself through nature. Psalm 19 says, and it should be up on the screen, the heavens declare the glory of God, and the sky above proclaims his handiwork. Day to day pours out speech, and night to night reveals knowledge. There is no speech, nor are there words whose voice is not heard. Their voice goes out through all the earth, and their words to the end of the world. All of nature speaks to the amazing character of God. I always laugh when I read news articles or when new animal species are discovered or some major scientific breakthrough shows again how complex and amazing our world is. We think we know it all, when in actuality we know very little. Just as art is a reflection of the artist, nature is a reflection of its creator. So God has revealed himself in nature. He has also revealed himself through Jesus. The book of John begins like this, speaking about Jesus. In the beginning was the Word, Jesus, and the Word was God. And the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things were made through him, and without him was not anything made that was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. And in Hebrews 1, in these last days, God has spoken to us by his Son, whom he appointed the heir of all things, through whom also he created the world. He, Jesus, is the radiance of the glory of God and the exact imprint of his nature. That is Jesus. Jesus is God. When we learn about Jesus, we are learning about who God is. The whole Bible points to Jesus and teaches us about who God is. God, of course, has many characteristics, but the one I will mention here encompasses many others and describes him and only him. He is holy. Charles Hodge, the Princeton theologian, defines it by saying, "The holiness of God is not to be conceived of as one attribute among others. It is rather a general term representing the conception of God's consummate perfection and total glory. It is his infinite moral perfection, crowning his infinite intelligence and power," which is to say that he is perfect. And because he is moral perfection, he is separate from us. Because none of us, no matter how much we volunteer, or how much we give at the office, or how much we sacrifice for our kids, or how much we convince ourselves that we are good by saying, well, I'm not a bad person because I've never killed anybody, none of us can claim moral perfection, much less infinite intelligence and power. Which leads me to my second point. Know yourself. And here is where I hope you'll permit me a few minutes to rant. I intend for it to be a gracious rant, but it's going to be a rant nonetheless. Everyone has pet peeves, and mine are very well known to those near me. I'm very particular about smells. So people who drench themselves in perfume and cologne, not my favorite. As Neil says, you're a bit of a princess when it comes to smells. But as I remind him, I adore the smell of Gillette products, so he has nothing to worry about. So I'm particular about smells. Other pet peeves, I really have to bite my tongue when I get poor customer service. When someone in the service industry is thoughtless, lazy, or just plain rude, everything in me wants to get in their face and say, "People, this is your job." Or just a few days ago, I was getting off an airplane and was reminded of another pet peeve. Again, I have many. Ever notice those people who, as soon as the seatbelt sign goes off, jump up and rush up as far up the aisle as they can? And then what happens? They have to wait. Like everybody else. I'm like, why? Seriously, why? My biggest pet peeve, however, happens in the summer, and there's no way to avoid it because really you'll be driving down the road, sun's out, windows are down, there's a nice breeze, life is good, and then you'll see it. A man driving his car without his shirt on. Really. Seatbelt vinyl against sweaty, usually hairy skin, honestly, it gives me the absolute willies. But my current pet peeve, the one that makes me rant, is the lie of self-esteem. It is everywhere. Oprah is its champion, but what distresses me most is how prevalent it is in the church today.